Good morning, everyone. I am Emily, as Blair said. I am a co-founder of Alton Dot, and we are a family-based business, a husband and wife team. My partner in crime is at the back, probably snoozing there. No, not Brian, but our 4-month-old. I am coming to you live from maternity leave, so if I look tired or confused at any point during this talk, I am, very much so. Before we get started, I want to know who's in the room with us. Do we have, I guess by show of hands, how many folks are here representing something from the app space? A few of you, all right. And is it safe to assume we won't assume the rest of you are from the agency space, or who's from the agency space? All right, great. And how many are from a team that's like 5 or fewer, just out of curiosity? Okay, so we've got some big teams in here. So Alton Dot in its current iteration is a small and mighty team of 4. We've had a few different iterations over the last few years, but we are currently servicing mostly Shopify Plus merchants with no specific niche. Prior to founding Alton Dot, I was managing a suite of Shopify apps. I was successful in helping them be sold, and that parent company was eventually acquired by GoDaddy. That left me with this decision: what do I do next? I wasn't ready to leave the Shopify space, and but had a few things in mind. And over the course of managing these apps at events throughout New York City, people would often come up and say, I'm in an agency, how do I get into the app space? So I think it's probably safe to assume that even the agency folks in here think that apps are probably pretty great. And agencies must suck. It's constant slog, having to deal with selling after selling, being at the beck and call of your merchants. And there's some truth to that. Apps are really low touch. If you're lucky, your users may sign up to use your app, install it on their own, and never talk to you while you collect month after month revenue. Whereas agencies are very high touch. And you'll notice here, these are 3 lovely, unique users that are reaching out politely saying, hi, can you help me install? And this is the same client reaching out over and over and over again. In fact, early in Alton Dot, I woke up one morning to a bombardment of text messages from a client who was supposed to be sending us a zip file of forms that we could process and import onto this buyer's journey on the website. They sold school uniforms, and each school that they onboarded had different requirements, different uniforms, and so they had to go through this form. Instead of sending me the zip file of the PDFs that we know he had, he was texting me individual photos that he would printed the PDF off of his laptop, put it on his desk, and took a literal photo of the PDF that we were meant to process. We had another merchant who used to treat us as IT support. One day we had a call, hey, the back office computer is Windows XP. Does that support Shopify? Like, do you think we should upgrade? Another argument, apps are scalable, especially with folks like Mantle and Gadget. It's more and more accessible to launch and scale an app. Whereas agencies, it's a steeper climb. If you are a small team and you lose one of your landmark clients, you may not be able to reach payroll. If you lose a teammate, you may not be able to deliver on what you've promised to the client. I think my clicker has stopped working. There we go. Apps, the coveted recurring revenue, sign up once, pay forever. And agencies, you're perpetually having to sell in order to avoid the feast and famine of selling, delivering all the work because you've sold so much, and then resurfacing to discover that you've got nothing in the pipeline and are not sure what to do next. Apps are built to sell. They are packaged in a very attractive way for investors, often selling between 5 to 10x annual recurring revenue, whereas agencies are much harder to sell. You have to have ironclad contracts, teammates that are willing to stick around, and you typically see lower multiples on your EBITDA or instead mergers or acqui-hires. So then, Emily, why an agency after seeing success in the app world? Well, starting a business is hard, and this isn't my first time. I spent years living in New York, building a startup that did receive some traction, but was never commercially successful, which is a polite way of saying we never made any money. Secondly, life happens. Oh, and I can't forget Brian in the back. Brian also worked in the tech space in New York City, more so with venture-backed startups, and frequently saw them claim success based on the size of checks that were written for their businesses, only to implode months later without ever having a product go to market. We didn't want to take that approach and wanted to build something that was sustainable and profitable from day one. I had a bit of a chip on my shoulder from that startup that never made any money, especially after living in New York and depleting most of my savings in not the cheapest city in the world. Second reason is life happens. Brian and I were living in New York. After almost a decade, we were looking a little ragged, and while our friends back home were starting families, buying houses, we were just working. And I had this incessant noise of my mother's voice in my ear reminding me that if I didn't get around to having babies, it was going to be a geriatric pregnancy. And for those of you that don't know, they call pregnancies for women over 35 geriatric pregnancies. How rude. You'd think you could call it something like mature pregnancy or something. Anyway, I did want babies, and I did want more space to get out of the city and trade the startup hustle bro culture that was so alive in the early aughts for something a little more sustainable. Lastly, opportunity was rife in the form of confused, lost, and frustrated merchants. I don't know how many of you have been around Shopify for more than 5 years or so. Can I see a show of hands? A few? So you'll remember life before Online Store 2.0, where if you had an app that touched the front end, you almost definitely had to install that for the merchant. And that resulted in a Frankenstein code bases that were touched by multiple developers that didn't know what the other person had done, multiple apps installed, leaving their lingering traces like weeds throughout the code base, and not a pretty scenario. Merchants had countless apps installed. It was clear they were looking for something that would solve their problem, leave an app installed, remnants everywhere. Clearly, it was leaving them with problems unsolved. And those that were worth supporting. So in those days when you had to install apps for all of these merchants, many of which would churn, many of which had never made a sale, and you're combing through their app and their their Git opening support tickets, all caps, like, your app broke my site. Meanwhile, they'd never had a sale in the 9 months that they had been open, so we're pretty sure it wasn't the app that they just installed. The merchants that were worth supporting and that actually converted to paid customers had this willingness to pay. They were lost, and they just needed a guide. They needed someone to take them through, lead them away from danger, help them find the right apps, and clean up their code bases. So Brian and I combined forces. We have complementary skill sets. Brian is a designer by trade. I am a developer. And we had a shared vision of building a business that was profitable from day one, that was 100% ours, and lower risk than a venture that would take a while to pay off. I did say low risk, and I will say that starting a business with your significant other is not exactly low risk, but it worked. We've been profitable from day one, and in fact, that chip on my shoulder I can safely wipe off because our first year of operations, we did over 7 figures in revenue with a team of 3. So we did it. And we clearly deliver value to our merchants. In the app space, it was challenging sometimes to know if what we were building was really making a difference. A lot of those merchants, as I said, didn't have high volume sales. The app that was installed may or may not have fit their requirements or helped move the needle forward. In the agency space, it was so immediately transparent the difference we were making for our merchants. One example is we had relocated from New York City to small town Canada, and COVID hit. We were seeing all of these brick and mortar shops in this small town that we were living in having to close their doors, and this was a far cry from the merchants we had been working with in New York City, but we decided that there was really value we could bring to this new community. There was a woman who ran craft shows and supported many vendors who all had their incomes disrupted as a result of COVID, not being able to go and participate in these craft shows. We helped her build a virtual market, and within 12 hours of launching her new store, she had done more revenue than she had in the 8 years that she had been on Shopify. It also resulted in strong relationships. Our relationship survived, right, Brian? And we developed really strong relationships with our merchants and with our teammates. Something that we were really proud of. There were businesses that we weren't as excited to work with in the app space. You don't get to choose who you work with, and we were really excited to choose who we worked with in the agency space, and really proud of the work that we had done and the businesses that our merchants were growing. So knowing that, I don't think you necessarily agree with me that agencies suck, but knowing that they can be challenging, how have we made it work? We've employed safety first, so we say no. In the app world, you can't say no to certain merchants. I'm looking at you, MAGA-swag dropshippers. But we can say no to the wrong clients and say no to clients when they are approaching a problem from the wrong lens. Often when they come to us with a solution, we have to take a step back and try to identify what the problem is. It may be a line or two of code will solve the business case that they're addressing instead of, I need you to build me a whole new buyer's journey with a landing page. So taking an approach of really trying to advise and solve their problems as opposed to just being an agency by hire. We do first impression projects. So these are fixed fee, fixed scope, fixed timeline projects that give the merchant a chance to get to know us and us a chance to get to go know the merchant before we get into bed. We've created healthy boundaries. I no longer give my phone number to any clients, and we don't have any shared asynchronous chatting. We have regular scheduled calls with our merchants. We expect them to arrive prepared, and we do the same. We also have value-based pricing. So as opposed to nickel and diming for every hour, we believe there's a conflict of interest in hourly billing, and so we try to work with our merchants to find identify the problem and then price it accordingly. This eliminates the need for back and forth hourly, like, do we have enough budget to move forward with this particular feature? It saves a ton of project management, and it just makes our clients trust us a bit more that we're on their team, as opposed to the more time it takes us to build this, the more we get paid. We've also incorporated SaaS principles. So recurring revenue has been prioritized from day one. So taking the lessons from the app world that was so attractive and incorporating that into our business is why we were able to scale our revenue so quickly, especially early on. But we don't handcuff our clients with ironclad contracts, which might make us hard to sell, but we make it really easy for them to decide to give us a try, to work with us, and really easy to cancel, just like SaaS. We also offer self-service documentation. So for every feature we release, we include documentation and training for the team and expect that they use that instead of reaching out to us over and over again, asking for help on how to do something that we've implemented for them. We also offer streamlined support. So instead of having a dedicated project manager, you may have a dedicated point of contact, but you never have to email them directly. Our team changes, our client's team changes, and we don't expect them to remember the names or who's their designer or who's their developer. So our merchants always reach out to team@altandot.com, and their message gets routed to the appropriate person. And in terms of a business model, it's not all bad. We did see some pros to apps early on, but apps versus agencies, apps are a bit more of a long shot. If you don't have merchants up front telling you that, yes, this is something that I want you to build, it's a bit more of a gamble. On the app side, it's more of a short game where our clients are giving us ideas all the time and we're like, yeah, done, got it. My parents are golfers and they're probably super embarrassed that I use that analogy. Apps, you can be a bit vulnerable to market changes. So in the Shopify ecosystem, we're a little bit protected, but let's say a platform releases a new feature that cannibalizes your app, or they deprecate an endpoint that makes maintenance on your app a little challenging, or the barrier to entry for competition that much lower. On the other side, agencies are flexible. Market changes allow new opportunities. Things like GA4, GDPR, accessibility compliance, all of those become opportunities to sell more to your merchants as opposed to, oh, we've got to update our app, we have to train all our merchants, or update all our merchants, and et cetera. Apps are also pay to play. You need to invest your time and money upfront before you see a return, whereas in the agency space, we are paid to play. Customers give us their ideas, and we get to go explore, be curious, have fun, and create meaningful solutions for them. So if I reflect back, apps versus agency, it's been quite the ride. I think we had tremendous success early on and have continued to build on that, but we're not, I guess, devoid of the problems that do come with agencies. The way we have built things, I don't think we could turn and sell our agency tomorrow. The things that have made us successful are not something that's going to make somebody want to acquire the business from us. There are times when Brian and I are working in the business instead of on the business, and if we step away, things slow down. But all in all, we've built a business that has been profitable from day one, has supported our family. We now have 2 little ones, has supported our teammates' family. In fact, there have been 3 babies on our team born within the last 3 years. We support our clients' businesses and their families as well. We share baby photos, vacation photos, and it's been a really rewarding experience. And guess what? We still build apps. We build apps for our merchants and have a ton of, build apps for ourselves as well and have a ton of fun. It's one of my favorite parts of the job, and in fact, we're just paid to play. So what I want to leave you with is there's no right path, agencies versus apps. They're all great. We've seen success in both, but what I would argue you could take away is find your why. For us, it was family, a change of life, and this path is not necessarily what will be the path in the future. So find your why, look for opportunities, chart your own path, and know that what's right for you might change. It's time to choose your own adventure. Thank you, everyone.